All right, guys, welcome to Forecasting with Friends. Just one friend here, well, me and you, all of you watching. Weather is going to be sort of one extreme or the other across the Gulf of Mexico. On our side of the Gulf, we're looking at probably, in fact, most assuredly, our hottest week of the year so far. And then on the other side of the Gulf of Mexico, we've had the second hurricane of the season that made landfall to hit the United States, and that made landfall over in Florida this morning. So I want to start off on the weather graphics here showing you a live view from St. Petersburg Beach, Florida. Now this is an area that missed the worst of the storm because the center of circulation of the storm, moved pretty well to the north of this area, but they still ended up there on that so-called dirty side of the storm, and so they had some storm surge. Obviously, the sea is angry out there, but overall, they sort of missed the worst of it. There was some minor wind damage to that area. I think we'll take a look at some of the flooding here in just a moment as well, but it really was just sort of a nasty day there. Tampa dodged another one, I suppose, which is what they always do recently. I do want to share a couple of things with you. I'm on my laptop right now because I wanted to show you a couple other views. I could actually change this view that we're seeing here on my computer that is in front of me. So I'm just going to zoom over there so I could share a couple other views of Florida with you. For example, here is one that is from a little bit closer to the landfall. This one is closer to Cedar Key. This is Crystal Beach. It should pop up, not Crystal Beach, Crystal River, Florida. So that one is also an area that got some storm surge, but really nothing too major, fortunately for them. And then as far as the Tampa area, again, they got some rain, but it really wasn't anything too nasty. Here's a look from Tampa, which right now is looking pretty yucky. Here we go, and I will play that out so that you can see what's happening in Tampa right now, which is that it's raining, and that's about it. This should pop up here just momentarily. And that is going to be coming up right now. So, yeah, there it is. So there's downtown Tampa. So, they missed the worst of it. So here we go. So what is the latest with this thing? What's remarkable about it? Well, I talked about this in a little more detail on Mondays with Mike. That's going to be airing at 12:30 here. But we've had, so get this, it's kind of like this sneaking under the radar, pun intended. And that is that we've had 4 named storms so far this year. All 4 have made landfall on the Gulf Coast. We had Tropical Storm Alberto that hit near Veracruz, Mexico. We had Hurricane Beryl, which of course caused the terrible devastation here. In the midst of Beryl, before Beryl made landfall, there was a short-lived storm named Tropical Storm Chris that probably nobody even noticed because all eyes were on Beryl. But that also made landfall on the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And then, of course, this morning we had Hurricane Debby. So first 4, we are 4 for 4 on Gulf Coast landfalls, and that is not common at all. So this is the latest on Debby here as of 11:03 here this morning on this Monday. 70-mile-per-hour winds. It has slowed down a little bit. It's moving to the north-northeast at 8 miles per hour. That pressure of 983 is still pretty low. I mean, that's a fairly sizable storm. But here's the problem, and here's the main concern. I want you to notice how slow the progress is expected to be. So each one of those tropical storm icons that you see represents 24 hours of movement. So 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning, it's probably near the coastline of Georgia, and then you go 24 hours ahead to Wednesday, 24 hours more to Thursday, and 24 hours more to Friday, and this thing is still in South Carolina. Now this, as I'll show you here in a moment, the models are kind of in enough disagreement that I wouldn't be surprised if the storm ended up outside of the cone of uncertainty. I mean, that does happen. It might go farther to the west or farther to the east. For right now, though, it's basically here been moving in a straight line there into an area just to the north of Cedar Key, Florida. By the way, anybody who's familiar with the area, maybe you go there on vacation, the big vacation spots like Destin and Panama City and Pensacola, and they didn't get hardly anything. They got some waves, but hardly anything in the way of any significant rain or anything like that. So this is the center of circulation. There it is, Category 1, 80-mile-per-hour winds. Now inland, the eye is completely over land, and it's crossing over the intersection or the junction of I-75 and I-10. Now this view here shows really the extent of how large the system is in these banding features, these spiral bands that form around the outside of storms like this. We have one that's cutting across Florida, and then we have another one that stretches from the Bahamas all the way up to the coastline of South Carolina. So with this sort of trajectory, I guess, if you will, of these rain bands, this is what could start to really cause some serious flooding in Georgia and in South Carolina. And also, by the way, those rain bands there in Florida, there was one of them that produced more than a foot of rain for this morning. And the big threat is going to be for flooding. Okay, so this morning we had a lot of our colleagues with our Fox sister stations in Florida. One of the first pieces of video I want to show you is from Perry, Florida. Now this is in the northern part of the state. Perry is like sort of between Tallahassee and Gainesville, and I do think we have some video of that. Is the first one. So this is video that came to us early this morning. Obviously this is pre-dawn, but they were one of the areas where, I mean, the rain's moving sideways. I mean, that is some pretty scary stuff. Fortunately, nobody is out there on the roads. You could already see some of those signs that were in front of the shopping center were already knocked out. Most likely they had wind gusts that were kind of similar to what we had here in Houston, you know, over 70 miles per hour. There is going to be some roof damage there. The power has been knocked out to a lot of spots, although you can see the electricity is still on this view, right, from early this morning. And from what we heard from one of our reporters during the mid-morning hours is that there were about 150,000 customers without power, which is obviously a far cry from what we had here. Okay, now we want to take a look at a report that was issued to us from just very recently, just earlier this morning, from our colleague Regina Gonzalez, who I believe was down in Sarasota, Florida. So is it starting to let up a little bit where you are?
Good morning to you guys. Yeah, I would say so. Rain-wise, we've definitely had really bad scattered thunderstorms since we came out here around 4 o'clock Eastern time this morning. It has definitely let up, and now is a great opportunity for first responders to get out there and start rescuing many of these folks who have just been trapped in their homes. We are technically right now in Sarasota. So this community center lake, which you're looking at right now, it's got about 70 homes. The lake in the middle completely flooded, as you can see, into the streets. Some of the neighbors we spoke with said that they've got 2-3 feet of water inside of their houses. You can see Humvees. We've got boats out here. Fire rescue just trying to save as many people as they can, as quickly as they can. Definitely a very, very sad sight. We've actually got some residents there on that Humvee right now in front of you. We've seen pets, children, including an infant child that was brought off of that truck. So you just really feel for a lot of these people. They said that this is completely unprecedented, that yes, this neighborhood has flooded before, not anywhere near this bad in quite a few years. So they're just trying to do the best they can to get out, get to hotels, try to get dry, seek shelter. Right now it does appear that we've gotten a bit of lull in the conditions weather-wise. It's been thundering, you've got some lightning here and there, but right now it's not raining as bad as it was. I can tell you my socks are soaked, my feet are wet, we're just completely drenched. But this is the case in a lot of parts of these communities. We've got people along the coast that saw a lot of flooding. There were definitely some cars out there surrounded by water, just completely drowned, just completely flooded. But yeah, this is really the scene right now. This is what we can show you guys. We're hoping for the best for these people.
Hey, Regina, how far are you from the beach right now? Because I'm assuming that's storm surge flooding.
So actually we're about 20 minutes from the beach right now. So what you're looking at right now is honestly a significant amount of rain falling in a short amount of time, because yes, along the coastal communities you've definitely got flooding from storm surge and the ocean that was pushed by those big heavy gusts of wind, but this was just the rain water falling and completely making these rivers like this rise. You've got canals, rivers, lakes out here. So yeah, what you're looking at is definitely just a lot of rain.
And you know, I asked that question because, I mean, look how high the water is. I mean, it really looked to me like storm surge, but she was absolutely right. I did look at the rainfall amounts from that area, and the Doppler radar estimated rainfall totals were between 12 and 17 inches, and that was over a 12-hour time period. So absolutely, I mean, that's what produced that just incredible flooding and water rescues, and that's just such a familiar sight coming from Houston, right? Our other colleague, Kelly Cowan, was in, I believe, Bradenton, Florida, which is also in the Tampa-St. Petersburg metro area. Here's what she had to show us.
The tail end of Debby just driving water up onto the beach here all morning long. You can see these onshore winds pushing the water up to the dining line here at Caddy's on the beach. And we just have some very high water right now. We're not too far from what should have been low tide, but that's clearly not apparent here as the Gulf continues to churn and water continues to push its way up onto the beach. One positive sign, though, is the beach renourishment project appears to have paid off. Of course, Pinellas County pumping millions of dollars into beach renourishment after Idalia came through. This one of several beaches that had to be closed down for more than a month, in fact, after Idalia rolled through. And these are some of the dunes that they were doing work on. The dunes where they not only rebuilt these, but also replanted sea oats, and you can see just how high the water came up earlier in the day. What we didn't see, though, is water in the streets, and that's really what these dunes are made to do. They're made to protect the homes here at Sunset Beach and made to keep the water off of the streets, keep those streets from flooding. So we saw some minimal spots of that near high tide this morning, but we didn't see the flooding that we've seen in storms past. Elsewhere in Pinellas County, we saw plenty of high water in Tarpon Springs. Of course, that has become a recurring problem according to shop owners there. The city looking to fix that problem, exploring different options, but we did see some issues with high waters and flooding around the sponge docks early this morning. We also saw street flooding in several of the typical trouble spots in Pinellas County, including Mariners Cove and Clearwater Beach. Most of the neighbors there, they know the drill. They prepared ahead of time. They moved their cars to higher ground so that when that flooding came in around high tide this morning, they were ready to go and their cars left high and dry and away from the street flooding. So really, we are getting these last few bands here out at the beach, and every now and then it's just a complete soaker out here. And of course, the winds continue to do what they're doing, pushing the waves up onto the beach and keeping it from being a nice beach day out here. Really, we should see about 30 yards of clear beach, but that's not the case this morning with the way that this storm has been passing over. But again, the story of the day, the dunes doing their job, keeping the water out of the streets and away from the homes, and that's really the best outcome you can expect here at Sunset Beach. For Fox 13, Kelly Cowan reporting.
All right, well, that's good news. You know, a lot of the preparations they make to protect their beaches are working. So excellent. All right, coming up after the break, we're getting you ready again for preparing for hurricane season with one of JD's hurricane gear tests.
Fox 26 is The
Anonymous.
Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.
All right, welcome back. Well, as we saw with Hurricane Beryl, when a storm makes landfall, the lights are going to go out. So you need a battery-powered flashlight or lantern. On today's Hurricane Gear Test, meteorologist John Dawson is talking about different types of batteries for your light.
I want you to plan to have enough power to provide 36 hours of light in your hurricane kits. That means you can use traditional disposable batteries or ones that are rechargeable. But on today's Hurricane Gear Test, I've actually got a light that uses both. This is the Infinity X1 hybrid power flashlight. And when they ship you the light, it comes with two power sources. This is a rechargeable core, which uses USB for charging, and this is a dry cell core, and they even include the 9 alkaline batteries for it. So you'll pick the power source that you want, get it put into the light, get everything screwed back together, and then you should be ready to go. Clicking the switch will cycle through that high, medium, and low settings. This model has a maximum output of 5,000 lumens, and that rechargeable battery will give you 2 hours of runtime on high. Now, the low will give you 14 hours of runtime. Now, that is nowhere close to the numbers that I would like to see, so you better have an extra set of batteries on hand. Or you just have to make sure you have a way to recharge that rechargeable core, and that's, of course, without having electricity in your house, because we're planning for the power to go out. I do like the fact that the rechargeable battery also comes with an output, so you can use it to recharge your phone if you find yourself in a jam. The aircraft grade aluminum feels good in your hand and should give you confidence that this is a tough light. And you can also monitor those battery levels with this LED right here above the switch. I'm giving the Infinity X1 hybrid power flashlight a Cat 3 out of 5 on my Hurricane Kit priority scale. I really need longer run times in my Hurricane Kit lights. Looking online, there's a model with 4,000 lumens that cost about 80 bucks. Tell me what kind of batteries are in your lights. Leave me a comment on my YouTube channel. Just search for meteorologist John Dawson.
All right, excellent as always. All right, so you know, this is my favorite kind of story. The only thing that would be better would be water skiing squirrel, but I'll have to settle for this. All right, it's a scene straight out of an eerie dream, a very nice dream. Australian zookeepers caught this stunning footage on camera. Check. Rhinoceros, ostriches, walking through this foggy landscape. Now, the workers there at this park say the animals seemed kind of unbothered by the thick fog, and they just kind of walked around like it was any other day. Now, it was very shortly after this that the fog cleared out and all the animals got to enjoy the sunshine. But, you know, I guess it's nature and they are used to this sort of thing, but it's not something that we very commonly see, right? I also think this would be a pretty cool place to go. I mean, it must be some kind of a nature preserve down there in Australia, because obviously those animals are not native to Australia, but I don't know if it's at a zoo or a nature preserve or one of those drive-through safari kind of places. But very, very beautiful stuff. Beautiful animals. All right. Coming up, we're going to talk about the heat. The heat is going to be on here very shortly. I'm telling you, we have not hit 100 degrees so far in Houston this year. We're going to do it this week, maybe more than once. The latest on that, and also a new live view from Florida and another look at now tropical storm Debby. So see you in a couple of minutes.
Fox 26 is The Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.
All right, I want to share something interesting with you. So what we're looking at right now is a live view from Jacksonville Beach, Florida. Now you may say, well, wait a minute. The hurricane made landfall on the other side of the state. Well, indeed it did, but these hurricanes are very large, and it has actually had not quite maybe as equal an impact, but almost as much of an impact on the North Atlantic coast of Florida as it did on the Gulf Coast of Florida. So they've had, I've seen some wind gusts here in the Jacksonville, Florida area up to 58 miles per hour. And you can see the camera kind of shaking there as a lot of these waves move along. Now keep in mind, as I pointed out earlier, the hurricane, or what's now the tropical storm, may reemerge out here over the Atlantic Ocean before very long. Another recap of this, if maybe you missed it at the top of the program, I just think it's remarkable. First 4 storms of the season, A, B, C, D, Alberto, Beryl, Chris, and Debby have all made landfall on the Gulf Coast, which is pretty remarkable. And by the way, 2 were hurricanes that hit the United States. Of course, we got Beryl and they got Debby, both Category 1s, but pretty strong Category 1s. So as of the late morning advisory, and we'll get another full advisory at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, but as of the late morning advisory, Debby's still packing winds of about 70 miles per hour and a very, very uncertain future with this one. Now I went into a little bit more detail about this for Mondays with Mike that's going to air at 12:30 after Fox 26 News at noon. But just to kind of give you the basics is that the cone of uncertainty is based on historical errors, like what's our average error for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, etc. It's not necessarily storm specific, so there could be some storms where the models are pointing all over the place, like this one, which I'll show you here in a moment, where the cone of uncertainty really doesn't necessarily hold all of the possible locations of the storm. This one, what's also interesting is that it may turn out to go back over the Atlantic Ocean, and if it does go back over the water coming up late tomorrow and heading into Wednesday, it could start to strengthen again, and there's a chance that it could redevelop into a hurricane. Can't rule that out. I mentioned before, you know, we saw that report from Regina Gonzalez, who was down here in the Sarasota area. And remember, I asked, I said, that's storm surge flooding, isn't it? No, it wasn't, because they had about 17 inches of rain. This is 24-hour rainfall, but a lot of that fell just in about 8 to 12 hours. 17 inches, that's why there was such serious flooding and water rescues and all of that stuff. So much of the west coast of Florida had, 10, 11, up to 17 inches of rain. Really prolific. Now, this type of rain is moving up to the north and could affect Georgia and South Carolina. This is a loop of the last 24 hours, just so you can see the progress that this thing made. It actually was moving pretty quickly yesterday. When it made landfall, it was moving to the north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour. Now that forward motion is down to about 8 miles per hour and will probably continue to get slower and slower and slower. And I'll show you why here in just a minute. But right now that center of circulation is crossing I-10 there in North Florida. So this thing is really, when you look at the extent of the cloud cover of the bands associated with this, it stretches all the way there from almost the central Gulf of Mexico into the storm, but then also here, a lot of that moisture is getting carried way off the east coast of the U.S. So once these things start to move a little farther north, they really spread out and can cover 1,000 miles, if not more, as far as the extent of their cloud cover. Take a look at this, okay? Now, our computer models, especially our main models, have been kind of all over the place with this one, especially the American GFS model, which even a week ago, was showing this thing moving up to the Florida Panhandle and just looping around for about 2 or 3 days and then zipping off toward the west. It's finally given up on that, but it's showing it coming, that's the blue line. It's showing it coming out here over the Atlantic and then looping back around. All of this is bad news because it indicates a slow motion, and slow moving storms dump a lot of rain. This is the water vapor satellite that shows us how this thing is going to get steered around, and it's a mess. Once it gets up here by Atlanta, it's just a mess as to where it's going to get steered. Let me just leave you with this, and that is the forecast for this week. A very hot pattern here as we're going to make a run at triple digits as early as today. Join me for the latest forecast on Fox 26 News at noon in 30 minutes.